So fast you can jump from the virtual world to the real world here and now. You guys, I'm pretty sure you're gonna see those gadgets very often in the future. My name is Selim Harbi and I'm a filmmaker and storyteller. I'm very pleased today to welcome you in this new video with the Arab Media Lab. Today we're gonna talk about virtual reality and how this technology could shape the future of cinema. So let's start by some basic definition. Virtual reality is the use of a computer technology to create a simulated environment. Unlike traditional user interfaces, VR places the user into an experience. Instead of viewing a screen in front of you, the user are totally immersed and able to interact with 3D real worlds, allowing to the user to stimulate as much senses as possible, such as vision, hearing, touching, or even smell. The question is it this technology a major innovation or just a chronological achievement? Let's look back in the history. One of the major attempts of cinematic experiences was the Sensoriama. In the early 60s, Morton Heilig conceived a multi-sensorial theater machine, including a stereoscopic color display, stereo sound, motional chair, fan-generated wind, and even smells. We all still have in mind the ViewMaster, those small viewers from Kodak. By introducing thin stereoscopic 3D photographs, the viewer can really see amazing picture, a funny experience, and giving the user a real sense of immersion. In the early 90s, and with the beginning of video games era, Atari introduced the game arcades, combining video, sound, moving chairs, and joysticks. Those games machines certainly are the pioneer of gaming and immersive technologies. Immersive everything. VR content is nowadays invading our realities. From cinema to entertainment, to music and concert, to marketing, video games, medical training, fine art, engineering, and even education, where a lot of VR content has proved its efficiency. Well, the question is now, how is it to tell a story using virtual reality? Is it the same process as in classical cinema? A story starts from A going to B. How is it as an experience knowing that we are immersed in a 360-degree environment? How to create a VR experience? Is there any magical formula? This is what we're going to see right now. In order to create a VR content, 3 steps are important. Like in a classical cinema, we need to capture first images and sound. Then we have to go in editing, what in the VR we call it stitching. Basically, all the footage will be put together to create a 360-degree environment. The last step would be to test and maybe incorporate interactive elements and program it. VR is empowering the viewer to observe the world in itself. By some extent, we can say that VR is creating meanings and memories by allowing us, the viewer, to go one step further in the spectrum of authenticity and allow us to capture, then translate, and even live in a more contextual environment. As we are in a 360-degree environment, our assimilation from time and space is totally challenged. Our brain is absorbing much more information. But also, we are seeing different objects from different directions. We are hearing sounds coming from different directions. This is the real immersion. One of the major characteristics of virtual reality is the non-linearity. That means my experience will not be as yours. The proximity to object creates a certain level of empathy that maybe cinema cannot create it. There is also plenty of VR platforms online that propose a huge range of VR content, but also online tools. Since the early 2000s, the immersive era has officially begun. In that time, Oculus was a small startup, but they were the first to design an all-in-one device, the Oculus Rift, a huge success. Since then, many brands like HTC, Google or Sony developed several products, always smaller, cleverer, funnier and accessible for masses. It is incredible how the VR market is growing. Forecast studies are expecting an exponential boom for the upcoming years. Here are some numbers and stats. The global market is expected to grow to more than 200 billion US by 2022. Till now, 14 million devices have been sold. The gaming sector is still dominant and the US is the largest market. We can also clearly see that almost all big companies and industries are using VR, AR products and solutions. You can find easily more details for every specific fields on the net. So let's come to the key question. How will VR shape the future of cinema? And could it even replace traditional movies? Well, personally, I don't think that VR is going to replace any traditional movies, but it can be a revolutionary new branch alongside traditional cinema. As a filmmaker, I want to point out the cinematographic aspect of VR filmmaking. VR films are somehow easier to shoot than traditional movies. It requires compact and only small cameras that can capture high quality picture up to 8K. You can record formats that are already ready for production without the usual high compression rates. There are other interesting aspects in VR filmmaking that create a total new way of cinematography. With VR, the client and filmmaker can already envision a set before the shooting even starts. Disney, for example, employs a VR software called Cardinal that is automatically generate VR storyboards out of the script, helping director to envision their world during the pre-production stage. A VR movie or series can be an experience with a real interactive characters, like the Star Wars series Vader Immortal, where the viewer can influence the path of the story. But frankly speaking, there are also quite some challenges and obstacles in VR cinema. We need to talk about it. First one is, of course, money. Producing a long VR movie and hiring a staff to stitch all the material together in addition to the usual production cost is quite pricey. VR movies tend to be shorter and due to the high cost more expensive than traditional movies. Producing a finished minute of VR footage could cost up to $10,000. And of course, this makes it at the end more difficult to charge for the consumer, as you have to pay more for a shorter experience, which is definitely a barrier when it comes to bringing VR to the mainstream. Also, going to the movie or going to see a movie is a social experience, while VR is an immersive but solitary one that often doesn't allow consumers to interact. Working on theaters that allow the audience to interact with each other, or finding other way to blend immersion with a social cinematic experience could be a real solution here, like IMAX VR was trying to do. Many consumers are experiencing nausea and motion sickness during a VR experience, which makes it very hard to watch a whole feature movie with a headset on. So there is to be a technical progress in the development of headset experience and design. And last and not least, content is and remain king. We saw a short boom of 3D cinema, but it debuzzed super quickly. Do you remember the movie Avatar? VR should come with another attractive and sustainable business model. Technical innovation is exciting, but people still want to see great stories, which is in itself an experience. VR should enhance those experiences, but they shouldn't be the primary attraction. So when we're talking about virtual reality and storytelling, it is clear that there is no preconceived formula and there is no rules to follow. Personally, I think that virtual reality is a mesmerizing tool to tell stories, to transform stories into real experiences and bring the world closer to the audience. I've been in the last couple of years involved in several virtual reality projects, and I'm happy to share that with you. I had the great chance to be the assistant director of The Enemy, one of the first VR projects ever. The Enemy is a face-to-face between two combatants from different conflicts. Thanks to virtual reality, such an encounter was possible. 6 questions for both sides, the user is in the middle. The Enemy makes you feel the shared humanity between those individuals and engage you to think beyond conflicts. The distribution of this project was also a challenge. How to bring this project to your pocket? Well, simple. An augmented reality app was built and designed for mobile devices that generates a code for the next user. So we could distribute this project in several countries and reach target groups. A real innovation and a real breakthrough for journalism. For my second project, Afro-Roots, I wanted to push this medium a little bit further. Afro-Roots is a journey connecting the dispatched Afro-diaspora through slavery. Music as a powerful connecting narrative. VR came as a powerful immersion tool. Indeed, being in the heart of a culture and close to people, feeling the space and the music brought this project to the next level. Very similar to Cinéma Vérité, where the core and the purpose was just to observe within the right distance. Despite some hesitant beginnings, we can see now that the major film festivals in the world, like Cannes, Venice, Berlinale or Sundance, are screening VR projects. As well, there is some specific funds for VR projects. On the African continent, for example, we saw in the last couple of years a lot of companies and startups with gaming background who starting curating and incubating a lot of VR content and documentaries. In the Middle East, and despite the huge potential in that region, the train didn't reach yet. Producing VR is still a very challenging and demanding process. On resources, on funds, but also on know-how and how to reach new audiences. The most important thing and the challenge now is how to use this expertise to make virtual reality a powerful tool to tell stories. To resume it, we need in the future absolutely curators and producers who really understand this medium, especially in a changing media landscape where audiences are just fed up with monotone and classical pictures. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you like it. Who knows, maybe your next project will be on virtual reality.